So there's basically three reasons why America could never defeat Canada in a war: military disadvantage, and we have power over the resources, and allies. Now, they say Canadians burned down the White House, but that's not true. It was actually African American loyalists, British loyalists, who were promised to get land, etc., in Canada if they allied with Britain. And so a lot of them swam to British ships and joined the military, and it was largely African American British loyalists who burned down the White House. How is this an advantage for Canada? Because African Americans, except for the Coons and the Black Edomites, put a pin in that, I'm not going to tell you what that is, but African Americans largely are going to be folding their arms, eating their popcorn, and drinking their wine while anybody invades America, and some will even be clapping. So the American military is going to lose the African American advantage. And the African American advantage has always been the military advantage for America. That's how the Civil War was won. That's how the national wars were won. They were using either, the French were using Black Haitians and the British were using Black African Americans to win their wars. To be clear, when they threatened to shut TikTok off in the United States, it was the African Americans that everybody missed, because the African Americans are the spice. And they're also our family for those of us around the world. So it wasn't anything else that was missed about TikTok. They are the spice. The African Americans and the whole African diaspora are the ones who invented everything. So if you have the African diaspora against you in any situation, you are straight up just going to lose. And so America is going to lose. The other factor is that America has always used their military just to destabilize. Remember, Russia won World War II. It wasn't the Americans. Also, a lot of the weaponry is outdated, and the military is largely made up of Mexicans and African Americans. And African Americans are done with America. And they're deporting all the Mexicans now. So what kind of a reason do they have to ally themselves with the American government? So that's a military disadvantage. And private military groups like, Blackwater and stuff are just too small to manage a large-scale invasion. America's had 70 years of failed military action. So America does not have a good military, and a lot of their equipment is outdated. And one of the reasons why America is insisting on 10,000 people at the border is not because of fentanyl. They want 10,000 soldiers at the border, not because of fentanyl, because Canada only provides 0.2% of the fentanyl is crossing into the American border. So that's not the issue. America is looking for security on the Canadian side. Instead of asking nicely to unify with America and shore up the borders because North America is under threat, they're saying, we're going to punish you if you don't set up. Like, that's just that ask is clearly saying they feel threatened at the border. They're saying, set up a military at the perimeter at the border, but we're not going to tell you that we feel threatened by the fact and reality that most of British Columbia is Chinese. China owns a lot of the Rocky Mountains and British Columbia, especially after the Big Sea. So there's a huge Chinese population here, and there's been rumors over and over again here in British Columbia about Chinese military being hidden out on certain islands. That's that fearful million-man army that's prophesied about in the Bible. Also, there's a fear of coming through Alaska or across the Bering Strait area, a Russian invasion. Now, this whole issue of allies is a big deal because more and more of Canada's trade is with China. And so China has a military advantage here. And as well, Canada gets a lot of its fresh fruit and vegetable products in the wintertime from Mexico. But cutting off American food coming into Canada is not really going to put us at a disadvantage because we're getting it from Mexico anyway. And because of alliances with China, we're getting it from hot countries in Asia as well. So that's not an advantage. Canada can easily form an alliance with Mexico. And then America's head can be knocked between the washer and the dryer, effectively, Canada and Mexico. Not that we have a huge military, but the main thing here is that America feels very threatened by Canada. And this is what this is showing because of Canada's advantages over America. And those advantages are this. Canada controls America's energy through hydroelectric power coming through the east, through the Great Lakes region. A lot of border and eastern American cities are powered by the Canadian hydroelectric dams. Oh yeah, and those Niagara Falls are actually fed by the rivers that run out of the Black Sea in Western Europe. It was originally called the Mare Negro, the Negro Sea, is what becomes one of the 7 streams going across North America. That feeds the Great Lakes, and they pour into the Mississippi, and that is all the water in America on the East Coast, and going all the way to the West Coast, actually. Also, through the Midwest, we have Alberta is controlling 60% of America's oil. Now, Alberta does not process that oil. A lot of people were angry about that in the 80s. I'm from Alberta. I grew up there, was born there. We're upset that all the manufacturing and processing went to America. So as soon as you stop processing oil, you're not going to have that oil, and you're going to lose all those jobs because most of that oil is coming from Canada, coming from Alberta. The other advantage that Canada has is not only do we control power through oil and power through energy, hydroelectric energy, but we control your water. We control your water in the east and in the west. Most of the water coming down into California and everything is coming out of the Canadian Rockies and Canadian water sources, and there is rumored to be one single dam that could cut off all the water. You cannot live without water. You certainly can't grow crops. And all the potash that is coming from the Canadian oil sources can't be used to grow your plants, your farming. So that comes under threat. And that's what America is really tipping its hand, saying we're scared because you have so much power over us, Canada, because you control all these resources. Rather than asking nicely and getting down on bended knee and saying, would you marry me? You're such a beautiful woman, Canada. Canada's been the mistress of America forever. Instead, they threaten. So these are some of the advantages that Canada has. Now, of course, what are you going to do in this situation? Well, Canada's going to go and talk to their friend China, who's already planted here, and talk to their friends, in Russia and go, you know what, we're being militarily threatened by these people. So what you going to do? And they're going to say, well, we're already here. So long story short, with all of this, and obviously, the Mexicans and the African Americans are not going to participate in a military war because of how they're being treated right now. Maybe the Coons will, but that's not a military advantage. How you're treating diversity and inclusion. There's a lot of diversity and inclusion in the military right now, and it's not any kind of charity. It's just a fact. So these are the reasons why America cannot go to war with Canada. Because Canada can easily catch hands with Mexico, and you're going to have China pushing in from the north and the south, knocking the head of America between the washer and the dryer. So those are all the reasons why I would have to say, long story short, it's very clear that Agent Orange is trying to start WW3 wrestling, because there's no reason for him to be conducting himself like this unless it's just the arrogance of his personality, or we're back to step one. It's very clear, it's the two wings of the same bird. Kamala was just a decoy, and you got what you want. You got Trump, America, and he's the demolition man. All right. He destroys companies. He's Mr. Bankruptcy, and he's about to bankrupt this corporation, corporate America, and Babylon the West, which Canada is part of anyway. So let me know what you think. Peace. Shalom, fam.